And welcome tonight. It is the Tile Happy Hour, Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. This is where we all get together and we just talk about tile because we love it. Tile, stone, the tile industry, all of the things. And if you've stumbled upon us on a night where you didn't have anything else to do, sit back, relax. Me and my good friend John here are going to tell you what we know about our topic tonight, which is Terrazzo tile. But before that, John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Happy Tuesday to you, Craig. It's the Tile Happy Hour. We do this every Tuesday, and we're glad to be here. Terrazzo tile. Love Terrazzo tile. It's a big story behind it, big history, right? And this is a huge resurgence of it now. Really love it.
Yeah.
How you doing?
That's one of the things that I've always loved about Terrazzo tile is I was, we just did a training on it. So you're probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but I was so into the poured in place terrazzo because that was kind of the company I worked for. They would go to your job site and pour terrazzo in place and finish it in place, which is amazing and still a great floor and perfect for different opportunities. But when Terrazzo tile came out, I kind of was like, well, that's just cheating.
When I think of Terrazzo tile, I think of in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, it's like diners are like the thing. And every diner has a terrazzo floor. At least they did. That was like, you knew you were at a diner when you walk in, you see like the little chips on the floor and the brass dividers. And that was a true diner in New York. And they're still there because they last. But, you just walk in and you have a regular tile floor. It just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah. Well, when did you notice that Terrazzo tile was becoming a thing? As a distributor, was that part of your portfolio? And did you have that in your showroom?
Well, I just did a call out to find out. I did a shout out to a friend.
Got a call coming in.
Question.
Hey,
yeah.
You phoned a friend?
Yeah. I phoned a friend to get that answer. So the answer is, it's been resurging in the last, the phone in the studio never rings. So that's pretty crazy.
It's good to say.
But
it's probably the people calling you about your poor internet. They're stealing it from across the street and they're like, your internet's terrible. They're calling to tell you that you need to boost it up.
No, I think I'm going to be asked to run as vice president. I think that someone's looking for.
Oh, you think you're getting the call from Harris?
Yeah. I don't know. Somebody's looking. They're probably looking for votes or looking for money. So anyway, I am MIA. I'm not answering the phone, but in the studio it never rings. So Terrazzo tile, really cool. When did I start noticing? Well, like I said, growing up in New York, diners, that was
did you have any in your showroom? Truly. Did you have Terrazzo tiles in your showroom? And if so, when did that come about?
Wow, that's a great question. No, we really didn't. The only thing, there was a time where we brought in the trend terrazzo, which is that super thin kind of a glass. It really wasn't terrazzo. It was a glass agglomerate, kind of like a terrazzo tile, super thin. There was another company that I remember a long time ago came in with kind of a thick concrete base terrazzo from Italy. And we looked at it and said, no, this is just for diners. We really never took it on. We were in business, family tile business for 45 years. And I have to say, I don't think we ever stocked a terrazzo, nor do we ever stock a terrazzo look. Now, say that again.
I said, so that just wasn't in your look. When you talk about that thin glass type terrazzo, was it more like an LVT? We had something like that down here called Florazzo. I think that was the company name. I don't know. They went out of business. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about more of like a resilient floor that had the granite look or a terrazzo look to it, like some kind of VCT of some sort. No, it was a company called Trend. It's really a glass tile, but it's thin, but it's like there's fibers in it and it's like little chips of glass. That was like the closest thing we had to terrazzo, but nothing like now. Now there's such a resurgence in style. I just had a design firm I'm working with, some Scandinavian like designs, and they have like this pine floors and have some white accents and some black accents, and they have terrazzo kind
Yeah.
of in the lookbook of a terrazzo floor, pine floors, a little white, a little beige, um, kind of modern but European looking. So, and it's been blowing up. I mean, Italian factories, Spanish factories, everyone's offering terrazzo tile.
Yeah, it's it's I love it because of the history of it, and I know we just did a little class on it, and talked about, it's been around since the 15th century, where stonemasons, were just picking up scrap pieces of marble and terrazzo and making that work and throwing it into a concrete mixture. And I love this picture here. You can't really see it too great on the screen, but the middle picture is the terrazzo finishers. And what they have is they have sanding blocks on the end of broomsticks. And so you got to think about, when this terrazzo hardens and all these little pieces of rock are in there, and they trowel it out a little bit, but it's not completely flat. And so they're walking around with these sticks with a rock on it, which seems so prehistoric, but yet
Wow.
it worked and it lasted so long.
Wait, but those sticks were kind of just like a sanding block in a way?
Yeah, on the bottom of the stick is an actual sanding stone. So it's just like any other, before sandpaper, this was what you
Right.
did. You had a stone that was harder than the stone you were trying to
Hmm.
do. So they attached them to a stick somehow, I don't know, and then they walk around and they're just pushing that broom and knocking the edges down until eventually the floor is smooth, and concrete, which is bonded to the marble chips. It's a monolithic floor and lasts forever.
That's wild. I would think that that sanding block was probably granite. What do you
I
think?
would think so too. Some sort of granite, maybe with a rough edge, or
Right.
just actually just maybe broken, and the rough edge is down, and they're just
Oh yeah.
pushing it around.
That's crazy. So obviously it wasn't epoxy based because it didn't exist back then, epoxy. So it was
Correct.
cement based, and they would take the scraps, so to speak, of stone from wherever, industry or from mountains, and kind of throw it into the cement and somehow smooth the surface, and you have a floor. Relatively
Yeah.
inexpensive, I guess, from a material standpoint. Labor probably was inexpensive labor then. That was probably easier to come by than money to,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's pretty wild. So those pictures were really cool. I've never seen those before.
Yeah,
It was really cool.
it is cool, and this, the guy that's got, the burlap sack of marble chips, and when we were doing it, when I started in 2000, that's still what the marble chips came in. You ordered them by the
Really?
size. It started with zeros, and zeros were the smallest chips you could buy, and I don't know, it went up to
Oh,
4 or 5, and the large the as the numbers increased, the size of the aggregate increased. And what was great about terrazzo is it was an architect's or a designer's dream, because they could choose the colors, they can choose all these different types of stones, the size of the stones, and then where it spent a lot of time, and this is where a lot of money was making samples. Okay, I want 5% of zero mother of pearl, 5% zero of this and that, and you start doing that and mixing the cements together, and you got to think how many different variations, and
right.
that's where in the modern era terrazzo got really expensive, as the designs got more complicated. They were not it was not price effective for smaller jobs, which is why they're in really large jobs, but smaller jobs that kind of price things out.
Right. Now, in your random example there, you used zero twice. Did you ever mix sizes?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. You'd have 10% threes, uh, Alabama white, and yeah, absolutely. You'd see all sorts of different sizes if you look at our now these are all tiles, but if you look at that black tile there, you'll see that there's different sizes in there, and it looks like that's all I don't know what kind of white. Alabama white was a popular kind, but you see the really large ones,
Right.
and then there's the really small ones, and there's the medium ones. So an architect actually had that idea to where they could mix it, match it, and go, and it just it makes for a really unique design opportunity.
I wonder, back in the early days when they gave a percentage, like, did they literally measure it out, or they kind of just knew enough, a handful of this and 3 handfuls of that, and throw it in
I bet in the olden days they just
different
kind of
degrees?
said, well, I got all these and I got all that, and it's probably one of those things where they said, well, come on, Earl, hold on, let's not throw them all in there at the same time. Hey, let me go get some from so and so and some from so and so, and well, let's mix that together, see what that looks like. Throw it down on the floor. Oh, that looks good. So they do it that way.
So
That's just a guess.
walk me through this visual. So there's a floor that needs to be installed with terrazzo. Terrazzo needs to be installed on the floor. Are you putting the concrete down and then throwing the chips in, or are you mixing the cement and the chips together and then spreading it out?
In the modern era, now back in the 15th century, you would put the cement down and throw the chips in. That's kind of how they did it then. For I think how it started.
Right.
At some point in time, they figured out, well, let's mix it together. And so the way we would do it, you'd have a barrel mixer of a certain size, and you would put your different types of stones in there. You'd have what's funny is, when it got down to the field, it was like a shovel scoop of this and 2 shovel scoops of that. You throw it into the mixer, then you put in your liquids and you mix it all together, and then pour it onto the floor. And then once you poured it onto the floor, you had your mechanics behind you that are moving the material around and troweling it out. And then you let it harden there. I mean, just for example, look at this. This is Port Everglades poured in place terrazzo. So you see 3 different colors of terrazzo. You see different color chips.
Wow.
And so
the story
what's
heard
unique
about
is,
the original terrazzo was Rocco.
Say that again.
The story I heard was Rocco Bacigalupi was on a project, and he had a whole bag of chips with him, and then someone else was doing cement. And it's kind of like the Reese's Pieces. Like, you got my chocolate and the peanut butter, and you got the peanut butter and the chocolate. And he fell and spilled the chips on the floor. And that's how it started.
That is a viable thing. And Rocco is probably a better Italian name than Ernie or whatever I said earlier.
There you go. Yeah. Well, anyway, I just made that up. That was just in my head. I was thinking that's what happened. Yeah. But yeah, so I see this multicolored kind of, this is really nice. Very nice.
Yeah. And the design elements are unlimited almost. You've got curves, you've got things that are kind of set. Most all these things are separated by a metal edge. You have to have a place to stop each color. But when you can't afford to do this, you've got to move to a pre-made piece of terrazzo, which is made very similar, and there's different ways that it's made. There's some that's made into a block and then cut. There's some that's kind of made like tile, and but it gives you the performance of terrazzo, but in a tile, in the hands of a tile setter.
Right. So basically, there's 3 types of terrazzo. There's the original, straight on the ground, pouring it, mixing it, however. Then there's a terrazzo tiles, which is kind of the same process, but done offsite, made into, say, a slab or tiles, and they're cut, into tiles. But it's a similar process as if you were doing it on site, but they're more gauged and I guess a little thinner probably than on site. Yeah, what was the thickness when you poured it in the modern era when you had a commercial floor? What was the overall
thickness? For cement
terrazzo,
it was about 3/4 of an inch. Yeah. And you could, if your floor wasn't flat, it can go up and down. but the kind of the minimum was about 3/4 of
Oh,
an
okay.
inch. If it was resin-based terrazzo, you could get it down as thin as 3/8 of an inch.
Well, the resin base, I mean, I guess I was wrong when I said there's 3 types of terrazzos. Forget about the resin versus concrete, but just as far as formats, on-site pouring the cement, right, in the terrazzo chips, off-site at a factory somewhere making tiles that you can stick in a crate and then ship to the site already done. And then the third is a porcelain that looks like terrazzo. You know, that's what we call terrazzo nowadays. When we say terrazzo, as a matter of fact, that page that you showed is a mixture of the latter.
I was wondering where you were
options, right?
going
Real
because I was
terrazzo.
only familiar with 2. So that's
Yeah.
yeah, you snuck that one in there.
Well, what prompted me was that graphic, because that graphic says terrazzo, but it shows porcelain, that black on the far left and that rose on the top right and the bottom right. Those are all real. Actually, they're all real terrazzos, probably, except that hexagon. Now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the hexagon doesn't look real,
But the
but yeah, I think
hexagon
the
is
rest of them
definitely
maybe.
a porcelain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's pretty cool.
and in our training,
what's also
we
cool is
talked
that
about the
we're doing
differences
terrazzo.
between the 2 types of terrazzo. So, were you very familiar with that? I know you didn't deal with it too much, but how they perform,
No,
and
I'm
that
not familiar with the
translates over to the
epoxy of it.
tile. You know, you have your cement and your resin.
Now, I said epoxy. Is that the wrong word?
No, epoxy. That's the term that I normally use, but there's so many different variations of epoxy. Resin kind of is like that big umbrella because there's probably some, especially in precast and tiles, that maybe not use a resin base. Maybe they're using a urethane base or some other chemical. So to be safe, I'm saying resin to encompass epoxy, which I think is probably the
Got it.
most common.
Got it. And when you're making it off-site in the tile form, are the chips? See, in that cross section you see there, the chips are pretty much predominantly on the surface, or the first 1/3 of the tile. When you're pouring it on site, did the chips go further down, or did they kind of stay closer to the top as well?
No, I think it's pretty much. I'm trying to think what it relates to. Kind of like oatmeal. You know, how oatmeal is once you mix it all together and it's soupy. That's what it's like when you pour it, and you don't. The stones in both of these examples go all the way through to the end. But you don't see them until you polish them or grind them. And if you've ever poured concrete, a lot of times when you take your trowel and you're troweling it out, the water will kind of come to the top. That's why you don't see the stones on the edge as well as you do with the resin, which also if you're looking at the edge of the cement piece on the screen, that's actually a formed edge, and in the resin, this is a cut edge, so it's cut off a little bit. But that's why you don't see it all the way through, but the stones go all the way through regardless.
So the formed is in a mold of some sort. You're pouring it, and the resin, well, maybe in a mold, but it's cut one more time for calibration.
Yeah, I think even some of the cements are still cut for calibration. Some, not all of them. Some of them are left rough, and those are the ones that are maybe not as square as other ones, but definitely the resin, because when it comes off the mold, it doesn't come off as clean as the cement does. So there's different ways, and different manufacturers do it differently. But these 2 you're looking at here, one is the molded edge for the cement, and the resin is it's clearly a cut edge.
Yeah, you can see how straight and clear it is. All right, so now we're talking about terrazzo cement, talking about terrazzo resin. And are those live shots of terrazzo? Wow.
Yeah, there's live shots of
Tile
terrazzo.
Happy Hour.
So, you can see. Well, you could see. Let's get that off there somewhere. Let's remove that. Well, daggone. But this has a cut edge. But because it's
There you
not
go.
polished, it's cement tile. But because it's not polished, you don't see the stones as good as you do in a what's right beside it, which is the epoxy. And I can't take that out of that. But
So
you
you're
can see
saying
how
if someone worked that edge, it would show the black more, it would show the chips more.
Yeah,
on
you
the
can
flat tile.
you can polish that edge, and a good note, you can polish that edge where it'll look exactly like the front. So, for instance, if you
Got it.
have a Terrazzo tile and you don't want to use a metal trim, we tell these.
Wait, Craig, hold on. Your second camera is picking up the mic, so we hear
Okay,
you
hold on.
twice
Let me get.
with a slight
Okay,
delay.
mute that. Let's see how that does. But
Yeah, that's good.
so if you don't want to use a metal edge on the trim, you can always polish that edge, and it can look just like the front. Same thing with the cement tile. If you wanted to do some edge polishing, you can make it look like that and not have to use a trim piece.
So that hexagon is a little bit of a unique terrazzo because the chips are different than normal, right?
Yeah, this is
If I'm not mistaken, isn't that?
That's all mother of pearl, which I don't know if that's
so. Terrazzo doesn't
bridges
necessarily
the gap of a fossil and a stone, right?
Yeah, I mean terrazzo typically means stone chips, but the mother of pearl, I guess, is like almost a semi-precious stone, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I was trying to
Yeah.
find some pictures of it, and I can't find them anymore. Here's one here. Let me see. But this is a picture of an area where they actually have metal embedded in the terrazzo, so you can really put anything in it now. I mean, once you go, you've gone to the moved into the 20th century, right? We go back and look at that. Well, I didn't include that picture, but now that you can do it mechanically, I mean, literally, we have done terrazzo samples with springs and bolts in them, to where the grinders are so strong they'll grind off the edge of it, and it makes artwork. And some of that is done here. These ornaments that you see in the floor, those are all metal. And I've never seen that done in terrazzo tile though.
That's pretty. It made me think of something unrelated, but do you ever see someone do a penny floor, like a real penny round, but using?
I've seen it on TikTok.
U.S. dollar, U.S. mint pennies. It's pretty crazy. At least you know your cost per square foot, like out of the gate,
Yeah,
right?
well, it's a penny, probably like a penny per 7/8 of an inch.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's funky, it's cool, it's weird, illegal. But
is it illegal?
I guess you probably pour urethane over it. I guess I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, normally they like to have the glass.
Right. Well, you're not necessarily destroying it. You are, but it's still in a good state. Just try to break it out, and that, which you probably can't. But so here's the big question: why cement base? Why resin base?
Yeah, that is a great question.
Why would someone make something?
There's a couple of points that if you can go resin, go resin. Resin, you can it's more stain resistant. You can get it mostly in a lot of different colors. The maintenance on it is less. Now, here's the caveat: it is a little more expensive. But if you do decide to do cement tile, cement terrazzo is great, and it does last a long time. If you've ever been in a Publix is all cement terrazzo, and it's a great product. It does react and need the maintenance sort of like a stone. So if you would have a marble or limestone floor, you would need to seal it and you need to have regular maintenance on it. But it's got that old world tradition.
Right.
I mean, resin terrazzo doesn't look like cement terrazzo. Cement terrazzo has a, you know, I don't know. I feel like I need to say something Italian. Has a what would that word be?
um,
Chutzpah. I don't know.
yeah, it's an Italian word. Exactly. Magnifico. So,
Magnifico.
so, all right. So the cement, you could probably tint the cement a little, but nowhere near what you can do with the resin, right? As far as tweaking the background color.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Back in the day, before they actually bleached Portland cement, all you had was gray cement. That's kind
Right.
of its natural form. And so, yeah, you can
Right.
tint it a little bit this way, a little bit that way. Then, the big thing was now we have pure white Portland, so now you can tint it a little more. But when
Right.
resin came along, I mean, any Pantone color you want, they can make the resin in those colors.
So walk me through. I mean, I could visualize a cementitious tile where you're putting Portland and you're mixing it and whatever you're doing, resin, epoxy, whatever. What is it? Is it, are you pouring bottles of chemicals, or is there aggregate? Is there a base? Is there a tint? How does that work?
Yeah, it's done differently everywhere. I can only speak for what I've seen. So normally, just like you have an epoxy, if you've ever used the two-part epoxy to stick something to something, if you're in the
Right.
terrazzo or in the tile world, you know what an epoxy grout is. And sometimes it's three parts, sometimes it's two parts. And you always have a hardener, and then you have your tint or your plasticizer or something like that. So normally, what
Right.
happens is once you choose your color, John Tedesco purple, that comes in. A company makes it. It comes in a 5-gallon bucket. You dump that into the mixer, and then you have your gallon bucket of hardener. You dump that in the mixer, and it's mixed in with all of your custom chosen terrazzo chips, and that produces the resin tile. So they do the same thing in the factory. Obviously they got the hardener, they got your different colors, and they just make like you said, a oatmeal cookie looking base and drop it into the form, spread it out or press it out, and then let it harden, and then it goes into the finishing process.
Does anyone do resin on site, or is that not?
Oh yeah, that's probably, and we'd have to talk with some terrazzo, but that's probably the majority of the terrazzo that's being poured in commercial
Oh,
properties nowadays is resin terrazzo. Cement terrazzo is not as easy to do. It's very finicky. The mixture, the
right.
water, all that stuff. It can if you do not know what you're doing, you can have a lot of cracks. Because as you know, look in your driveway. How many cracks do you have in your driveway? It's cement. That's what it does. And if you don't do it exactly right, it can be a nightmare. A lot of people have lost a lot of money getting into a cement terrazzo job, and they're very competent and resin based, and have made some mistakes.
So I could visualize that the resin has some odor or smell. Well, visualize is not the right word. It's the wrong sense, right? I could visualize a smell. I sense that there's a smell or some kind of maybe even VOCs or something, or off gassing as opposed to the concrete. Is there a factor?
It is definitely more, but not as bad as you would think.
Right.
And I'm not familiar with the actual VOC content, but it reminds me of, like, if you get a two-part epoxy that you're trying to glue your statuette back together from your award.
Right.
It kind of smells like that, but it's not overpowering.
Right. Before you said stick something to something. So when I come up with my own magic glue, that's going to be the name of it. It's going to be stick something to something glue. And
That I think that'll sell well.
I'm
I think that'll sell well.
I'm gonna write
But
I'm gonna
I
write
think the
that down.
key
Better,
to
better than crazy glue.
yeah, I think the key that we ought to talk about as Terrazzo tile. It's set just like tile. Um, one of the things you need to be aware of is, if just like any other tile, if it's over 15 inches, you need to use a large and heavy mortar. One of the things about resin-based terrazzo, sometimes they require a resin-based mortar. Now, I specifically
Ah,
tested ours with the thin set we carry, and it has a high bond, so it's working really well. The thin sets are better now. We've talked about this many times. They have a lot of latex in them, and they work really well today. So, but you need to go off whatever your manufacturer says. If your manufacturer says this tile needs to be set with an epoxy mortar, you need to set it with epoxy mortar. Don't take my word for it.
right. Yeah. So rule number one is don't take Craig's word for it. Follow the
That's right.
manufacturer's instructions.
That's
If
right.
there's any
Always read the
takeaway.
instructions.
Yeah. Well, Craig is the technical director of Tile Bar, but ultimately, each manufacturer has their own way of manufacturing things. They do their own tests and they have their own recommendations. So it is important, to follow instructions for sure. So that's pretty cool. We learned about the resin. We learned about the concrete. Now, what about performance? Like, I know that you mentioned that this concrete has to maybe be maintained a little more from maybe a ceiling perspective, but I'm wondering about the durability. Does it wear out? Does one wear out more than the other, or
No,
scratch?
I think they're all going to be about the same. Now, most of them have a sealer on them
Okay,
or some type of finishing on it, and you can see some degradation of that as it goes on. But normally, you just reapply that, and it goes back on. But
right,
some of the terrazzo that was actually poured in the 15th century is still around. You can still see it now. Yes, just like with cement, just like stone, you're going to see maybe some wear patterns and stuff like that. But the beauty about terrazzo, even terrazzo tiles, you can refinish them. You can get your grinder back out there, repolish the floor, and it's good to go. That's why terrazzo, poured in place terrazzo, and then terrazzo tiles coming right behind it are the cheapest flooring that you can do because of its lifespan.
right. Because literally, you never have to replace it. At
Never.
minimum, you just need to do some, cleaning maybe, or like you said, some sanding, but it can last forever. So that's pretty cool. I think
Yeah,
that's a
I
big,
worked on a if you're familiar with Duke University, I know they have a basketball
yeah,
team and they're pretty popular. But
heard of that.
one of their older dorms that was built in the 20s had a terrazzo floor, and it was a cement terrazzo floor. Now, it had been carpeted over for years, and when they did the renovation, it was probably 2015. They pulled up all that carpet, and the terrazzo was there. It still had carpet glue on it. There was places where they added walls and hammered into it,
Right.
but they took everything off of it, stripped it clean, got a terrazzo professional in there, grinded it, polished it. It looked like day one, and it had been
Pretty
sitting there
cool.
for 90 plus years.
It's kind of like a hardwood floor, right? People buy a house and they've taken up this old carpet and they go, we got to put some new carpet down. Then they realize, wow, there's some really nice parquet wood under here. Let's sand it down and refinish it, and
Yeah.
has a lot of character. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, I
Terrazzo is
think
I love the idea of it. I love the history of it. And if you got questions about terrazzo tile, hey, shoot it to us. Let us know where you're watching from. Who's if you're a tile setter, if you're a designer, if you have questions, John and I read every comment that comes through here, and we want to talk to you about it.
yeah. So for the record, Craig gets all the hate mail. I don't know why, Craig. Just
Yeah,
the way
John
things
gets all
go.
the solicitations. Hey, would you come and pose for my photographs?
You know what? It's really interesting how the both of us put ourselves uh, on this podcast. We put ourselves out there, and we really want to help. That's really what we're here for.
Yeah.
We want to tile the world. We want to tell you all about the products in the industry because we love the industry. We love the products, be a terrazzo tile poured or not a porcelain that looks like terrazzo, a glass tile, a cement tile, LVT tile, ceramic tile, terracotta, quarry, metal, glass. There's so many different categories of tile. And that's why we love this industry, because it's just unlimited. It's very practical, the product, but it's also very artistic. So it's not just, something like a plain cinder block wall that may be strong. It's actually decorative, and it's also very functional. So that's one of the exciting things about the industry right now. And the technology has increased so much, where they're doing digital printing. They can print textures now on tile, where you can feel a texture on a tile, it's actually kind of done in a printing mode in a way. So that's really, really exciting for us. And, we just love to be here. So send us your questions, send us your comments. And sometimes we have a sponsor actually that sponsors our show.
I was that was exactly where I was going, John. I was going to say we couldn't do this without without help and without the support of our friends at Tile Bar. So
some things are timeless. They're strong, sturdy, and attractive to generations. Terrazzo dates back to 15th century Italy. Artisans embedded marble chips into mortar, ground it down, and polished it. It remains an important part of design to this day. Terrazzo is classic and familiar. The beauty of the materials, your eye scans across it, finding new details. And with modern manufacturing, collections such as Tile Bar's Terrazzo Italy make it more interesting and accessible than ever. These precasted through-body tiles are authentic terrazzo, created as large blocks, then sliced and polished into tiles you can install on floors, walls, or countertops. It's amazing how fresh and new this old-world material looks today. It's terrazzo. It's Tile Bar. Visit tilebar.com to learn more.
Yeah, so just a little plug for if you need Terrazzo tile, tilebar.com. And thanks for their support. I love that little video. Is that the music you listen to at home? I know you're part Italian.
Yeah, exactly. I've never saw that video before. That was pretty cool.
Oh, you've never seen that?
Visuals and yeah, really. He used the word accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean to you when you talk? What did he mean by that?
I'm not sure the context. What did he say? What?
Well, he said it's made now in blocks and cut down and makes it more accessible.
I think it may be available. I'm not exactly sure what he meant by that. I don't. That didn't stand out to me. But
well, I'll tell you what I thought.
Just
it meant.
Off the cuff, I'm thinking maybe price wise.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think what that comment meant was, at first, it's hard to find a terrazzo expert. So you want terrazzo. It's very, very difficult to find someone who does that poured. So accessible meaning it's comes pre-made, and then accessible I think also refers to price, where if you did find that artisan that does on site, it's going to be a lot more than something manufactured, pre-made at least. So that's what I took that, and that resonated with me because it's true. You can go to the Tile Bar website or anybody's website, see a terrazzo tile, buy it, ship it, install it like a tile, or install it like a stone, I guess, in a way. And you have terrazzo just like they did in the 1500s and beyond in Italy, but it's comes in a crate, and you slap it down. Now terrazzo porcelain is really just that's even more accessible. I think people it's less costly to buy. It installs like a regular porcelain tile, so it's thinner. A lot of people, maybe they have the budget or they don't want the maintenance, but they don't want the maintenance. They'll pick a porcelain where there's zero. You do nothing at all with a porcelain terrazzo. But what you can't do with porcelain terrazzo is restore it. Not that it would wear in your lifetime, but if it did, if someone came into a terrazzo floor and dropped like a monkey wrench on it and scratched it or chipped it, you can repair that. And
Yeah.
if it was porcelain, it would chip and you'd have to chisel a tile out. And, so, for that reason, it's practical, even the real terrazzo. And the porcelain terrazzo is practical because it's inexpensive compared to, most other products. Really nice
Back in
looking
the
too.
day,
We have, yeah.
back in the day, we used to do a ton of pricing exercises. It was always a battle since the Terrazzo department was in a different division than I was in. We would have a designer say, we really want Terrazzo, but we're priced porcelain tile as a VE, a value engineer option, because they knew that if the budget went sideways, Terrazzo was normally about 3 times the cost. And so as
Right.
a building owner, if you're doing a major commercial building, you're not going to keep the building long enough to recoup the cost difference. So we did that a lot. And so the addition to the terrazzo and tile kind of, you were able to combine the two. So I think you're right. I think that's probably what the accessibility means.
Yeah, I think so too. What about countertops or other applications other than floors, walls, countertops?
I think
Do you see
countertops are
any of that?
great. I mean, do you remember probably back in the day in your in the hood of New York City, there used to be a whole bunch of things that were precast and made out of terrazzo. I remember terrazzo mop basins and terrazzo
Oh, yeah.
benches and all these things. And that kind of went away. The 70s were big for that, but I think some of that's coming back now. You see some of these prefab. You can buy prefab terrazzo shower. We talked about this earlier. Shower receptacles. The words left me, but
Right.
and those are,
Shower
if I'm
pans.
not mistaken, John, the TWA hotel, I think they have precast terrazzo shower basins in all of their rooms.
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. Like a white, off-white.
White with white.
Yeah. Back in, that was designed in 65, the TWA hotel around, and won lots of awards, European architect. And a lot of you may not know the TWA terminal was kind of made like a historic attraction. They didn't destroy it. And now they made it into a hotel, in the TWA hotel at the JFK. And they kept, they restored or kept or recreated that whole vibe, and which was really cool.
It's really a
The
neat place. If
flooring,
you've
the
never,
tiles, everything.
yeah, if you're in JFK and you have a layover, it's worth the walkover. I think Terminal 5 is what it is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So if you're in JFK, Terminal 5 is JetBlue primarily, I think. There's like a little door, and you just go into that door, and then it says TWA, only for TWA guests. It's like a little elevator. It's very innocuous. They don't want the whole airport just showing up there.
Yeah.
But you can easily get to it if you have an extra hour and, cut over to the TWA hotel. You kind of, you go over the roadway and into the hotel, and you can see the flooring. You can see the old digital boards that announce the flights coming and going, and all the retro, everything is retro. Love it. Love it.
It's very cool. Speaking of retro, speaking of moving into the future, John, we've been working on something behind the scenes that's coming up, and you said maybe we could tease that tonight. What's your tease?
Yeah. So the Tile Happy Hour, Craig and I put out this happy hour every week. We love that you're here, and we have so much like tidbits of information and sound bites and clips, and then we also do our own, social media, and we also do all sorts of content, training, educational, entertaining, whatever it is. So we decided to kind of put it all in one place where you can access all the madness. And the Tile Happy Hour website is in construction, and maybe we can give a sneak peek if it's at that point. There we go. So, you notice the new stylized logo, the Tile Happy Hour, and then you'll see some of the previous episodes and all sorts of things that are going on.
And the great thing is, John, on this bar right here that's going this way, you click on that and it'll take you right to that episode.
That is fantastic. Yeah, this is exciting. You know, we just love talking about tile. So we have like a geek's lifetime worth of stuff. Well, actually, interestingly enough, that picture I think was from Coral Gables.
It was.
Yeah, because that picture was taken outside, I think, and I think we cut out the background. You look
pretty cool there. I mean, but it was the only picture I had. You didn't send me a headshot, so I had to I had to come up with it on my own. But yeah, this is a work in progress. There's soon to be where you can click here and be a part of the show. What does that mean? We'll tell you once you click.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, this is you know, people have asked where can I see, and we'll say, well, go to YouTube and send you a link, and you have to find it. And
look at that guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That picture of me was a long time ago. Maybe
that was July 4th at a parade, you told me.
Yeah. Yeah, in the town I used to live in, Massapequa, Long Island, they did belong to a beach club, and every July 4th they would start at the main road, which was like a half a mile north of the sound, and all the kids in town would decorate their bicycles with flags and banners and red, white, and blue, and dress up in all patriotic stuff, and they'd all meet, and the fire department and the police would come, and then they'd have a parade, and basically it was a parade of the kids all dressed up and all the bikes. So that picture was with me and my kids that we use. And your picture looks like from your elementary school yearbook or something.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Well, and I will say that was the only other picture I had of you that I could figure out how to use. And I was like, well, let's just go retro. And then I found that one of me in probably, I guess, the 5th grade. I don't know. But yeah, so we're excited about the Tile Happy Hour. It's just thetilehappyhour.com. Like you said, John, it just kind of makes it easy if you hear about us, find us, to possibly find all of our information, how to get up with each of us individually, all in one place.
Well, so upcoming is next week, Craig and I and our Tile Bar team will be in Coral Gables, Florida. We have our National Sales Summit. Last year was the first time that we broadcast live from Coral Gables. This year we're probably going to record a show in Coral Gables at the beautiful Biltmore Hotel. Really exciting. So look out for that, and that will be coming soon. And then speaking of the website, I saw a little graphic there of coverings, and so looks like we've been invited back to Coverings 2025 to do our live podcast again, which was really exciting. This year we stepped up the technology a lot. That worked out really well. And so next year it's in Orlando, I think, right?
I think you're right. But never fear. Next week, John and we're going to be traveling, and but we've already recorded an episode for next week, and I'm super excited about this. If you're familiar with our Coverings podcast, you know we had somebody that got sick and had to call out, but we got him back. John, I got a little teaser video. How about that?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
Nasty person towards somebody else, it's very easy. Just make your profile anonymous or private.
It's buffering. Okay.
So that's a good.
Well, that didn't work.
Yeah. So Nathan, there we go. Hard work, creativity, social media. Great.
We talked
guy,
about
great
all of those things, didn't we, John?
Yeah, we talked about all those things. Was really good to know him. We have a lot in common, the three of us. Mainly the passion for tile and the industry, but also we all three of us kind of have a creative edge that allows us to kind of take advantage of social media. I guess that's an easy way to express ourselves and talk about things and display things and educate the world. And so, yeah, it was great to hear his perspective. We'll be broadcasting that. So I think we're broadcasting that on Tuesday, right?
On Tuesday, not tomorrow. Yes, next Tuesday.
Right.
Next
Yeah,
Tuesday.
week
We'll
from
be in
today,
Florida,
we'll be
and it'll be
broadcasting.
broadcast there.
Yeah. So that's going to be cool. Yeah. Well, this has been great. We learned about terrazzo. We learned about tile that looks like terrazzo, porcelains, resin, cement. And we got a little sneak peek on our little private project, our website, which is the Tile Happy Hour website, coming soon. And we gave you a little sneak peek of Nathan coming up next week. So don't forget to check that out. Well, yeah, this has been great, Craig. I know that you've been entrenched with training the Tile Bar team, and last training was terrazzo. I did get to catch some of it, not all of it. So that's why I had a lot of questions today, because I really wasn't able to catch it all. And my exposure to it has been pretty limited, except just from a visual standpoint. So glad to talk to you about it. So this is John Tedisco. I'd like to wish everybody peace, health, and happiness.
Yeah, thanks, John. Terrazzo Tiles it just holds a special place, because that's kind of where kind of takes me back to my beginnings. So it is fun. Once again, if you need any terrazzo tile, you can find it at tilebar.com. If you have any questions about terrazzo tile, find John and I on our socials, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all those things. We're there. Ask the questions. We will respond. We will answer your questions. And thanks for tuning in, and let's keep learning together and tile the world.